She crossed her arms and met Bright's glare head on, her resolve unshaken. I don't need your agreement, Bright. You wanted an open marriage, right? Well, I am simply playing by the same rules. Her voice was steady, unapologetic. I've got myself a hot, handsome boyfriend too. Gosh, he's so handsome that even you, as a man, might be tempted to fall for him. And he's free to visit me here anytime he wants. In fact, he can even spend the night in my room if it pleases him. Once upon a time, there lived a stunning lady named Ijoma. Her beauty was the kind that made people stop and stare. She was calm, carried herself with grace, and had a smile that could brighten anyone's day. Her intelligence sparkled in her eyes, and her slim yet curvy body made her the envy of many. Ijoma came from an average family that struggled to make ends meet, but she never let that dim her shine. She worked diligently at a local bank, where her quick wit and charm made her a favorite among customers. However, the demands of her family weighed heavily on her. Most of her salary went to keeping them afloat, leaving her with little for herself. Despite her struggle, Ijoma had a quiet hope for love. Suitors came and went, drawn by her beauty, but none matched the dream man she had imagined. That was until one fateful day enters Bright, a rich and confident CEO who commanded attention wherever he went. That day, he walked into Ijoma's bank with the air of someone used to having the world at his feet. But Bright, for all his wealth and power, was caught off guard by the young lady behind the counter. Ijoma's calm professionalism, sharp mind, and effortless beauty enchanted him. He found himself smiling at her clever remarks and lingering longer than he needed. From that moment, Bright was a man on a mission. He pursued Ijoma with the determination of someone who was not used to hearing no. He sent her flowers, waited patiently at her favorite spots, and called just to hear her voice. At first, Ijoma resisted. Could this larger than life man truly be interested in her? But Bright's persistence melted her doubts, and one evening she said yes. Their love blossomed like a garden in a spring. Bright swept her off her feet, and when they announced their engagement, her family erupted with joy. To them, Bright was more than a husband for Ijoma. He was a ticket to a better life. Their wedding was the talk of the town, a grand celebration of love and fortune. After their marriage, Bright, ever the provider, encouraged Ijoma to leave her job at the bank. He wanted her to explore her own dreams, so he opened a thriving business in her name. Life seemed perfect, two hearts deeply in love, wealth that flowed like a river, and dreams within reach. But as the years passed, cracks began to form. 4 years of marriage, and yet no cries of a baby filled their home. At first, they laughed it off, saying, "It will happen when it will happen." But when months turned to years, the laughter faded. They tried everything: doctors, prayers, herbal remedies, and even the advice of old women from their village. Yet, the child they longed for remained a dream. Ijoma bore the burden with silent strength, but Bright's frustration began to grow. He loved her, yes, but his desire for a child gnawed at him. The once perfect couple found themselves standing at a crossroad. The cracks in Ijoma and Bright's marriage began to widen like a deep chasm, swallowing the happiness they once shared. Bright started coming home late. His once vibrant laughter now replaced with silence. He barely looked at Ijoma during dinner, his attention always glued to his phone. She noticed the subtle changes, the secretive smiles, whispered phone calls, and the way he seemed distant, as though his heart was drifting elsewhere. Bright, she confronted him one evening, her voice trembling. "Who are you always talking to on the phone? Is there someone else?" He looked up from his plate, his face unreadable. "Ijoma, you are imagining things. There is no one else, just you, always you." But the reassurance felt hollow, like a shadow of the love they once had. Ijoma couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Then, one fateful afternoon, it happened. Ijoma had gone to the market to buy ingredients for Bright's favorite meal. As she reached the busy market square, she realized she had left her wallet at home. She quickly turned back, parking quietly outside their house. The gate creaked as she entered, but there was no sign of Bright noticing her return. Inside, she froze. From the living room, Bright's voice carried through the air, soft and tender. I miss you too, baby, he said. You know, you are the one I want. Just give me a little more time. Ijoma's heart sank. She felt her world shattering with each word he spoke. Unable to bear it, she stepped into the living room, her voice sharp and trembling. Bright, who are you talking to? He spun around, his phone slipping from his hand. For a moment, he stood there, speechless. Then, recovering, he shook his head. It's nothing, Ijoma. You are blowing this out of proportion. Nothing? She shouted, her voice echoing through the house. Bright, I gave you my love, my trust, and this is what I get. Who is she? Bright signed, rubbing his temples. Ijoma, you are overreacting. I am not overreacting. You are cheating on me. Her voice broke and tears streamed down her face. Bright, frustrated and defensive, grabbed his keys. I don't have time for this, he muttered, and stormed out, leaving Ijoma standing in the middle of the room, sobbing. Hours later, the sound of the front door opening jolted her awake. She had been sitting in the living room, eyes swollen and red. Bright walked in, his face calm yet distant. He sat across from her, his hands clasped tightly. Ijoma, he began, his tone cold and deliberate. We need to talk. What is there to talk about, Bright? She asked bitterly. You have already made your choice. He ignored her tone and leaned forward. Ijoma, I have thought about this for a long time. I want us to have an open marriage. Her heart stopped. Open marriage? She repeated. Bright, what do you mean by that? I mean, I need the freedom to see other people, he said, avoiding her eyes. I want a child, Ijoma, and if we can't have one together, I need to explore other options. Tears welled up in her eyes. Bright, I can never agree to this. Never. He signed, standing up. His next words were like daggers to her heart. I am not seeking your agreement, Ijoma. I am telling you what's going to happen. I am going ahead with it, whether you agree or not. Silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. Ijoma's vision blurred with tears as Bright walked past her, leaving her sitting there, shattered with only the echo of his words ringing in her ears. Ijoma sat on the couch, her mind a whirlwind of confusion and despair. She brought out her phone and called her mother, crying, Mama, you won't believe what Bright just said to me. He wants to have an open marriage. Open marriage. What does that mean? It means he is free to have other girlfriends while still married to me. Ijoma, men are polygamous in nature. Just let him be. Don't trouble him so he doesn't chase you out. I won't forgive you if you push us back into poverty. Just forget about it. After all, you are legally married to him. Tears welled up in her eyes. She ended the call. Was this the advice a mother should give? How could the woman who raised her with love and sacrifice now reduce her pain to mere survival? The night dragged on endlessly. Ijoma sat alone on the couch, staring into the darkness, deep in thought. Every passing hour felt like a reminder of the gaping wound in her marriage. She didn't sleep a wink. Her eyes remained fixed on the clock as it ticked, marking time in a house that no longer felt like home. The next morning, Bright moved around as though nothing had happened. He got dressed for work, his expression unreadable. He walked past Ijoma without so much as a glance or a word. the silence between them as heavy as the betrayer hanging over her. Hours turned into eternity, and the day passed in tense anticipation. Ijoma waited for Bride's return, dreading what he might do next. When she heard the sound of his car in the driveway that evening, her heart raced, her hands trembled. As she sat up, the front door opened and Bride stepped in. But he wasn't alone. "Good evening, darling," he said casually, as though nothing was amiss. By his side stood a woman. "Who is she?" Ijoma demanded, her voice shaking. Bride smiled coldly. "This is Linda. She will be staying with us from now on." For a moment, Ijoma couldn't speak. Her eyes darted between Bride and Linda, disbelief coursing through her veins. When she finally found her voice, it erupted in fury. "Over my dead body will I allow this," she screamed, standing to her feet. "Bright, are you out of your mind? And you," she turned to Linda, "whoever you are," her fingers trembling as she pointed, "get out of my house this minute." Linda didn't flinch. She didn't even look phased. Instead, she turned to Bright with a soft voice. "Baby, I am tired. Can you please take me to the bedroom? Please?" Bright nodded as if Ijoma wasn't even standing there. "Bright!" Ijoma shouted, her voice cracking. "What is wrong with you? You think I will let you humiliate me like this?" Bright stopped and turned to her, his face cold, his tone dismissive. "Ijoma, please move your things out of the bedroom tomorrow. Linda will need the space. For tonight, you can sleep in the guest room." Her words spun. "You can't be serious," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I am very serious," he said, without emotion. "Good night." With that, he led Linda upstairs, their footsteps echoing through the silent house. Ijoma stood frozen in the living room, her fist clenched, her chest heaving. Rage, humiliation, and heartbreak consumed her as the door to what was once her sanctuary clicked shut upstairs. Tears streamed down her face, but this time they weren't just tears of sadness, they were tears of something darker, something fierce. She wiped her face with trembling hands. This was not how her story would end. In the morning, Ijoma watched as Bright and Linda sat at the dining table, laughing softly while the maid served them breakfast. Bright didn't even glance in her direction. No knock on her door, no question about whether she had eaten or even slept. She was invisible to him now. As they left the house together, Linda's hand casually brushing Bright's arm, Ijoma felt a sharp sting in her chest. She stood by the window, gripping the curtain tightly, watching them drive away. "This can't be my life," she whispered, tears threatening to spill. Later that afternoon, she decided she needed to breathe, to talk to someone, anyone. She called Mark, her old friend from university. They had always been close, and she trusted him. They agreed to meet at a nearby restaurant. When she arrived, she found Mark already waiting, but he wasn't alone. Beside him stood a tall, well-built man with striking features. "IG," Mark greeted warmly, pulling her into a hug. "How have you been?" "This is my friend JC. Hope you don't mind." He tagged along. Ijoma smiled politely, extending her hand. But Jesse didn't just shake her hand. He froze for a moment, his eyes wide with admiration. "God took his time creating you," he blurted out, his voice filled with awe. "You are, you are breathtaking." Mark nudged him hard. "Jesse, calm down, oh. She's married. My guy, behave yourself." They all laughed, breaking the tension, and sat down at the table. Jesse couldn't help stealing glances at Ijoma, but she was too preoccupied to notice. Mark leaned closer, his smile fading as he studied her face. "IJ, something's wrong. What is it?" Ijoma hesitated, her eyes darting to Jesse. Mark noticed and waved dismissively. "Don't worry about him. Jesse is like my brother. Whatever you say here is safe." Taking a deep breath, Ijoma finally opened up. Her voice trembled as she recounted everything: Bright's last night, the phone calls, Linda moving in, and the humiliation of being asked to leave her own bedroom. Mark was stunned, his jaw tightening as she spoke. "IJ, this is unacceptable. You are too good, too smart, too beautiful to go through this nonsense." Jesse, who had been quiet, suddenly slammed his fist on the table, startling them both. "What kind of a man does that?" his voice shaking with anger. A woman like you, Ijoma, a queen. How can anyone treat you like that? That man must be insane. His intensity caught her off guard, and for the first time in days, she felt seen. Mark placed a reassuring hand on hers. You are not alone, IJ. Whatever you decide to do, I am here for you, always. Jesse leaned in, his gaze steady. And so am I, he said softly. No one deserves to make you feel less than the amazing woman you are. For the first time in a long while, Ijoma felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, her story wasn't over yet. The restaurant buzzed with quiet chatter, but at their table, the tension was thick. Jesse leaned back in his chair, his sharp eyes never leaving Ijoma as she spoke. Why don't you just divorce him? Jesse asked bluntly, his deep voice laced with frustration. You deserve better, damsel. Much better. Ijoma's eyes dropped to the table. She shook her head slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. I can't. I still love him, Jesse. And my family depends on him right now. You don't understand. My mom even said, if I ever leave, she'd never forgive me. Jesse's face softened, his frustration giving way to something deeper, pity, and an anger he couldn't quite place. How could such a strong, stunning woman be bound by such pain? He clenched his fist under the table, struggling to control the storm brewing inside him. After a moment of silence, Jesse leaned forward, his voice steady but charged. Okay, what if we fight fire with fire? Mark raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Jesse smirked. I am saying, what if you get yourself a fake boyfriend, Ijoma? Someone to make him taste his own medicine. Play his game too. Mark's eyes lit up. Brilliant! That could knock him back to his senses. After all, no man likes to share his woman. It might make him see what he's about to lose. Ijoma stared at them, wide-eyed. A fake boyfriend? She asked, her voice uncertain. Jesse leaned back, a slight grin spreading across his face. Yes, damsel, a man who can make pride feel the heat. Make him realize you are not someone to be taken for granted. But how would I even find someone? She asked, looking from Mark to Jesse, her doubt evident. Jesse's grin widened. I could help, if you don't mind, he said, his tone playful. I mean, I think I am a little bit handsome, right? I should be scary enough to make your husband rethink his decision. Mark laughed, shaking his head. Are you sure you want to do this, Jesse? This isn't just fun and games. Jesse shrugged. Why not? It's not like I have anything to lose. Besides, no one should treat her like that. Ijoma deserves to be happy. Ijoma raised an eyebrow, her lips curving into a small smile despite herself. Won't your girlfriend mind? Do? Jesse's gaze softened as he looked straight into her eyes. I am very much single, damsel. You have absolutely nothing to worry about. She laughed nervously, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. I don't know. This sounds crazy. Think about it, Jesse said, his voice gentle but firm. You don't have to decide now. Just know that I am here to help. And if we do this, I promise to protect you. No man should ever make you cry. Mark nodded in agreement. It's worth considering, IG. Sometimes you have to shake things up to set things right. They exchanged contact information, and Jesse watched her closely, silently praying this plan would not only work, but would also give him a chance to show her what she truly deserved. As they walked her to her car, Jesse opened the door for her, his hand brushing hers briefly. Drive safely, he said, softly. Thank you, she murmured, slipping into the driver's seat. Jesse stood in the parking lot, his gaze fixed in the direction Ijoma's car had disappeared, his mind raced with emotions he couldn't quite name. Beside him, Mark crossed his arms, a knowing smile playing on his lips. Jesse, I have got to ask, Mark began, breaking the silence. You are a busy man, a very busy man. You are the CEO of a booming oil and gas company, running operations left and right. When exactly do you think you will have the time to play the role of her fake boyfriend? Jesse chuckled, his hands slipping into his pocket. Mark, I don't think you understand. Understand what? Mark pressed. Jesse turned to him, his expression serious yet filled with an unusual softness. Guy, I have fallen for that babe, he admitted, his voice quiet but firm. Mark's eyebrow shot up. Wait, what? Jessie nodded. Call it love at first sight if you want, but I felt it the moment I saw her. She's everything, her beauty, her strength, even the way she's handling all this pain with so much dignity. I can't just stand by and let her go back to that undeserving man. Mark whistled, leaning against a nearby car. Wow, that's deep, Jessie, but you are not exactly in her league. You know? What do you mean? Jessie asked, a hint of defensiveness in his tone. Mark smirked. You are rich, you are powerful, and you've got a name that commands respect. She's from an average background, and from what she said, she's cautious about people with wealth. You didn't even tell her you are a rich guy. Why? Jessie shrugged, glancing back towards the restaurant. Because if she knew, she might think I have an ulterior motive. She would feel like I am trying to buy her affection or pity her. And I don't want that. I want her to see me for me. But just Jessie, the guy who's willing to stand by her side no matter what. Mark nodded slowly, a sly smile tugging at his lips. So, you are playing the long game, huh? Jessie smirked back. You could say that, but trust me, Mark, this isn't just a game for me. I mean it. I want to help her get through this, but I also want to make sure she never has to cry again. Not because of him, not because of anyone. Mark clapped him on the back. You are a good guy, Jesse. I just hope it works out for you. Because, let's be real, that husband of hers won't let her go easily. Jesse's jaw tightened, his expression hardening. He doesn't have a choice. He's the one who brought another woman into their home, treating Ijoma like she's replaceable. I will make him regret it. Mark chuckled, shaking his head. You have got it bad, my guy. I wish you luck. You are going to need it. Jesse turned his face, set with determination. Thanks, Mark. But luck has nothing to do with it. I am not letting her slip through my fingers. As they walked to their cars, Mark couldn't help but glance at Jesse, marveling at the transformation in his stoic friend. He had never seen Jesse so driven by something or someone. The evening was thick with tension as Ijoma stepped into the house, her heart heavy. The sound of laughter floated from the living room, Bride's deep chuckle mixed with Linda's high-pitched giggles. As she entered, her eyes met the sight of Bride and Linda loved up on the couch. Jealousy hit Ijoma like a wave, tightening her chest, but she swallowed hard and forced herself to stay calm. She dropped her bag on the side table and stood, her presence finally acknowledged, as Bright glanced at her briefly before returning his attention to Linda. Bright, she began, her voice steady but cool. May I have a word with you, please? Bright leaned back against the couch, his arm still draped around Linda. He didn't bother to sit up. Say whatever you want to say, Ijoma. Linda is my woman, not a stranger. Ijoma felt her heart crack a little at his word, but she straightened her shoulder and kept her composure. All right, she said, her voice sharp enough to cut through the tension. I have decided I won't give you a hard time anymore. If you want this open marriage, fine. Go ahead with it. Bryce's face lit up with a smug smile and Linda snickered, leaning closer to him. Great, he said with mock enthusiasm, his tone laced with arrogance. You can't even give us a hard time, Linda added, flipping her head and smacking at Ijoma. Ijoma ignored her, her focus solely on Bright. But, she continued, her voice steady but firm, since we are in an open marriage, I will be having a boyfriend too. The words landed like a grenade. Bright's smile vanished, his body stiffening as if someone had doused him with cold water. His eyes snapped to Ijoma with disbelief. What? He barked, sitting upright. I said, Ijoma repeated, her voice louder this time. I will be having a boyfriend too. Bright shot up from the couch, his face a mix of shock and fury. That is not possible. I can never agree to that. She crossed her arms and met Bright's glare head on, her resolve unshaken. I don't need your agreement, Bright. You wanted an open marriage, right? Well, I am simply playing by the same rules. Her voice was steady, unapologetic. I've got myself a hot, handsome boyfriend too. Gosh, he's so handsome that even you, as a man, might be tempted to fall for him. And he's free to visit me here anytime he wants. In fact, he can even spend the night in my room if it pleases him. Stay tuned for the next part, where Ijoma's bold move takes an unexpected twist, setting off a chain of events that will leave Bright, Linda, and even you questioning everything. The drama is just getting started. If you have enjoyed this story, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. Thank you for watching.